Auckland, New Zealand said goodbye to him on Friday morning, and the room that gathered at the Akarana Event Center, on the edge of the harbor, with the Waitemata in the distance, was a room that stretched across continents and decades to honor the man who helped build one of the most essential sounds in the history of American music. The service for Ronald LaPread was held at the Akarana Event Center, 10 Tamaki Drive, Auckland on Friday, June 5 at 10:00 a.m. He died suddenly on May 30, 2026, surrounded by family and love. He was 75 years old. Ronald LaPread chose New Zealand. He moved there in the 1980s, long after the Commodores had made him famous, long after the Motown deal and the stadiums and the chart positions, and he built a life on the other side of the world. A husband, a father, a man who let the music become a memory rather than an identity. And when the doors opened on Friday morning in Auckland, the world that had known him from that music came to find the man who had always been more than it. Let's start with the open casket, because the choice to hold an open casket service says something specific about this family's approach to grief. Not managing the goodbye, confronting it, letting the people who came to honor Ronald LaPread stand close enough to say what they needed to say, in the presence of the man they were saying it to. His daughter Soria, a music producer who announced his death on Instagram stories, wrote, "If you know me, you know my dad. I am devastated. A piece of me is gone from this world. A piece of me is gone from this world." That is not a press release. That is a daughter who built her own career in the same music industry her father helped shape, sitting with the specific, permanent loss of the person who was her foundation. She was there, with her brothers Ronald Jr. and Mark, with their mother Faride, the devoted and dearly loved wife described in the official obituary with the simplicity that says everything. Devoted, dearly loved. For 40 years in New Zealand, a family built far from Tuskegee, Alabama, where Ronald LaPread's musical story began. Ronald LaPread helped form the Commodores while the members were students in Tuskegee, Alabama. The group went on to become one of Motown's major acts, blending funk, soul, pop, and R&B into a sound that reached a wide audience. His bass work was part of some of the band's best-known songs, including Brick House, Easy, 3 Times a Lady, Still, and Night Shift. Brick House, Easy, 3 Times a Lady, Still, Night Shift. Not one of those, all of them. The man in the casket on Friday morning was the bassist underneath some of the most recognizable recordings in the history of popular music. The low end of Brick House, the specific, driving, completely unstoppable groove that has made that song inescapable for 50 years, came from Ronald LaPread's hands. He played on 11 of the group's albums. He was there at the Motown signing. He was there through the funk years and the ballad years and the years when Lionel Richie's voice became the sound of American romance. And then, in the 1980s, he stepped back. He chose New Zealand. He chose the family. Lionel Richie was in that room in spirit, if not in person. His statement landed before the service even began. Lionel Richie shared condolences for his Commodore's co-founder, acknowledging LaPread's role in shaping the group's sound and legacy. Co-founder, not bassist, not former member, co-founder. The man who helped build the institution that Lionel Richie used to launch one of the most successful solo careers in music history. The man who was present at the creation, who helped decide what the Commodores were going to sound like before the world had ever heard of them. The current Commodores sent their tribute too, because the band that carries the name into the present understands that the name means something specifically because of the people who built it in Tuskegee in the late 1960s. And Ronald LaPread was one of those people. But wait, let me ask you something. Have you ever thought about the bass player? Not the lead singer, not the guitarist. The bass player, the person whose instrument you feel more than you hear, whose contribution to a recording is the foundation that everything else stands on. Ronald LaPread was that person, for the Commodores, At the exact moment in American music history when the bass was becoming something new, when funk was rediscovering what the low end could do, when groove was becoming the primary language of R&B, he was there, playing it, defining it, laying down the foundation that Lionel Richie's melodies could float above. And then he went to New Zealand and raised his children and played with the Commodores on their 2025 tour 1 year before his death. Still there, still delivering, still himself. He most recently played with the Commodores on stage during their tour in 2025. He was on a stage in 2025, 74 years old, playing the bass lines he had written in his 20s and making them sound exactly as they always sounded, because some things are simply carried in the hands and cannot be learned or faked. The tributes in the Auckland funeral were as much about the man as the music, because the people who knew Ronald LaPread in New Zealand, the neighbors, the community, the people who had 40 years of ordinary daily life alongside him, knew something different than the people who knew the Commodores. They knew the husband who was devoted and dearly loved, the father who was cherished and adored, the man with the smile and the laugh that a friend described as something they would genuinely miss, the person who showed up for people, not because of who he had been, but because of who he was. One fan wrote in the memorial book, "A legendary icon whom I just saw in May. It's come as a complete shock, and my heart goes out to all the family and friends. Just saw him in May, complete shock. That is the specific, devastating language of sudden loss, not a long illness, not a gradual goodbye, just he was there, and then he wasn't. He died following a sudden medical event. He was surrounded by family and love. Surrounded by family and love. The family he built on the other side of the world from where his music made him famous. The wife who was devoted and dearly loved. The children he was cherished and adored by. The New Zealand community that knew him not as a Commodore but as a neighbor, as a friend, as the man with the laugh." Ronald LaPread helped form the Commodores while at Tuskegee. He played on 11 albums, Brick House, Easy, 3 Times a Lady, Still, Night Shift. 11 albums, 5 decades of music still playing. A bass line underneath one of the most famous opening riffs in the history of funk. Still heard in stadiums, at parties, in films, on every dance floor where people want to feel something immediately and completely. He stepped back. He chose New Zealand. He chose Friday morning at the Akarana Events Center on Tamaki Drive. The harbor view, the family, the open casket, the people who came from Alabama and from Auckland and from everywhere in between to stand close to the man who had given the world the low end of a sound that 50 years have not diminished. Ronald LaPread, born September 4, 1950, died May 30, 2026, aged 75. Rest in peace, Ronald LaPread. Shaggy Dog, you have earned your rest. Thank you for watching.